Good afternoon, everybody. This is Holloway with the National Weather Service with Alaska statewide weather for Veterans Day 2020. We have a couple options for you to further refine your weather search or to investigate these watches and warnings that we may have out. A 1-800 number and weather.gov/Alaska. And lastly, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please email us at the email listed at the bottom of the page. For hazardous weather, we do have coastal flood advisory out for the Bristol Bay region until 5 p.m. this afternoon. And we also have a winter weather advisory that remains in effect until 6 a.m. on Thursday for portions of the northern and central panhandle. So please check those out. What does the satellite image show us today? You can see the nice low pressure system near Kuskokwim Bay, spreading some light rain showers across the lower elevations of the Alaska Peninsula into the Aleutians. Also some rain showers just offshore of the southwest coast, and some snow showers across further inland, Alaska Range, and portions of the Western Brooks Range and into the Seward Peninsula. Also, there's another low pressure system near the Panhandle that is spreading some snow showers across the northern and central portions of the Panhandle and northern Gulf region. What does this look like on the surface map for today's weather? 967 millibar low. There's all the precipitation associated with that system. Snow showers across the Alaska Range, northern Gulf, and into the Panhandle, and across the Seward Peninsula, western Brooks Range, and some rain showers across the eastern Bering Sea and lower elevations of the coast, southwest coast, and down through the Alaska Peninsula into the Aleutians around a 1018 millibar high. And there's that other low pressure system, 984 millibar low with an occluder front, triple point, that will be weakening this evening. And again, some snow showers in the Panhandle associated with that. For tonight's weather, 981 millibar low now crossing into the Cook Inlet region with snow showers across the Alaska Range and into the Alaska Peninsula and northern Gulf region and into the Panhandle with some snow showers, maybe some rain showers at the lower elevations near the coast, and that continues through the coastal region of the northern Gulf and then through the portions of the Aleutians and Bristol Bay region around. There is some snow showers across the southwest and into the Norton Sound region with a 984 millibar low up that way. For Thursday's weather, that low in the Cook Inlet moves into Prince William Sound, 979 millibar low now with a trough associated with that system. Snow showers continue across the Panhandle in the northern Gulf, and a 985 millibar low also in the Norton Sound region. Essentially weak cold front analyzed through the interior, bringing some light snow showers associated with that system. Otherwise, some light rain showers across portions of the Alaska Peninsula into the Aleutians and across the Gulf region. For Friday's weather, that low finally makes it into the northeast Gulf Coast area with some scattered snow showers and light rain showers associated with that trough. And that cold front now essentially a stationary front across the interior, bringing some scattered snow showers across the interior. Another low pressure system there near the YK Delta, 992 millibar low, scattered snow showers in the southwest, and a trough pushing through the Bering Sea, some mixed precipitation across the Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula, otherwise some rain showers across the Gulf. Low temperatures Thursday morning, Kaktovik, looks like it will be 3 and Dead Horse 3, Ukiyavik 11, Point Hope 20, Arctic Village 4, Fort Yukon 11, Fort Yukon 9, Eagle 11, Northway 1, Fairbanks 12, and then we get over to Tanana 13, Galena 20, Bethel Dem 28, otherwise 30s and 20s across the southwest region, and 30s down through the Alaska Peninsula into the Aleutians with Savunga 33, Nome 28. As we head back down to the northern Gulf, it looks like 33 at Seward, Cordova 40, 38 in Yakutat, Haines 33, 34 in Juneau, 39 in Ketchikan. For Thursday afternoon, AKwx jumps up to 8 degrees. Dead Horse will be up in around 8 degrees as well. UAFTV 16, Point Hope 25, Fort Yukon 17, and AKwx Pass looks like it'll be around 9. Bettles 8, Fairbanks 17, Eagle 18, Northway 10, Big Delta 17, 24 at Galena, and 30s down through the southwest with Bethel 32, 35 at Dillingham, 34 at King Salmon, and 30s and low 40s down through the Alaska Peninsula and in through the Aleutians, and 30s and 40s through the Panhandle. For Friday morning, -7 at AKwx, single digits through the eastern interior, and 20s down through the southwest, 30s through the Alaska Peninsula and through the Aleutians, 30s and mid-20s through the Panhandle. Friday morning, single digits and teens through much of the mainland, 30s through the Panhandle.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Let's take a look at the aviation weather, starting with flying weather for Thursday morning. Well, we'll be dealing with a low pressure system that will transition into the Gulf over the next couple of days. So IFR conditions spread out through portions of the southwest mainland and into the Alaska Peninsula and over into the northern Gulf and portions of the Panhandle. Otherwise, marginal conditions will be noted through much of the western mainland into the eastern and Brooks Range and North Slope. For Thursday afternoon, looking at continued IFR conditions across portions of the southwest region and into the Alaska Peninsula, as well as the northern Gulf and into portions of the Panhandle. Otherwise, marginal conditions through the North Slope and through much of the western mainland, western interior, down through the Alaska Peninsula. For Friday morning, lingering IFR conditions over the southwest and in through the Yukon Basin, and marginal conditions throughout the northern Gulf and into the Panhandle. Otherwise, marginal conditions throughout much of the Bering Sea and Aleutians. For Friday afternoon, just a limited area of IFR conditions there in the lower Yukon into the lower Kuskokwim Basin. Otherwise, marginal conditions through the Gulf and into the Panhandle. Just isolated areas of IFR conditions near the coastal mountains in the Panhandle, and marginal conditions out along the North Slope, Arctic Coast region, and lastly through Alaska Peninsula and much through the Bering. Past conditions for Thursday, I didn't mess around and just went IFR conditions for AKwx as well as Adigan. It was kind of on the border with marginal, but I went ahead and colored in as IFR. Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR conditions down there in the southern Alaska Range. Rainy, got IFR conditions early, then transitioning to marginal. And then Windy Pass, marginal to VFR on Thursday again. And Isabel went for VFR conditions out that way. And Mintessa, VFR as well. Tanita, marginal. And Portage didn't mess around there either with IFR conditions. And then lastly, for the Chilkoot and White Passes, IFR conditions in the Panhandle. Freezing levels, pretty simplified map this morning. Surface freezing level across the Panhandle into the southern mainland, down through Alaska Peninsula, and over into the YK Delta region, and over through the northern Bering Sea. Elevated freezing level at 2,000 feet across the Panhandle into the Gulf and just south of Aleutians. For icing conditions on Thursday, went between 5 and 10,000 feet across the state, with considerable moderate conditions in portions of the coastal mountains into the Canadian territory, and then some areas across the northern Gulf region and down through the southwest and Alaska Peninsula as well. Jet stream on Thursday, low pressure system in Cook Inlet region with a 180 knot jet just south of the Alaska Peninsula in northwesterly flow, across much of the region, across the Panhandle, across the Alaska Peninsula and across the Aleutians, with light and variable conditions across much of the mainland and into the Panhandle. For 9,000 foot winds on Thursday, that low pressure system still analyzed there. Otherwise, northwesterly winds coming across the Bering Sea and across the Alaska Peninsula with 55 to 60 knots there. And then light and variable across much of the mainland and maybe 40 to 45 across portions of the Panhandle. For 3,000 foot winds on Thursday, again, low pressure system still analyzed there at 3,000 feet. Again, northwesterly flow continues across much of the Bering and across the Alaska Peninsula into the Gulf with 50 to 55 knots crowding across the Kodiak Island area and Bristol Bay region. Light and variable across much of the mainland and Panhandle. Turbulence for Thursday, we're going to be looking at isolated areas to scattered areas below 6,000 feet across the northern Gulf, below 4,000 feet across the southern end of the Panhandle, and below 5,000 feet with some isolated sphere in the Bristol Bay region into Kodiak Island.
I can't really name anyone that has so much integrity as she does to the things that she's accomplishing. It's pretty amazing. Having Claire as a role model, just a strong woman in science and just so smart and so kind. It's just a huge confidence booster. Is that, hey, I could do that too, you know? That's possible, that's successful, that's what I want to do.
I would characterize her as a pioneer in the field.
The amount and quality of the work she's put out is second to none.
I know people who have a lot of tenacity. I know people that have integrity, but it's rare that people have both together in that, that combination that Claire does.
Every morning, Dr. Claire Parkinson gets up before sunrise and runs 2 miles to work. She hasn't missed a day in nearly 40 years. To know the evolution of sea ice and how we observe it from space is to know Claire. This year, she's celebrating 40 years at NASA.
When I arrived at Goddard, which was in July of 1978, it was an incredibly exciting period here. Satellites were pretty new, but a lot of data had been collected.
NASA scientists were inundated with information, and Claire was in a cohort looking at sea ice, trying to make sense of a jumble of very raw, very new data. It was around that time that Claire and her team, at the time led by Dr. Jay Zwally, created the principal sea ice record that we use today. How does something like that record help you do your job?
Oh, that record is fundamental to understanding sea ice. So without it, we wouldn't know how rapidly it's changing.
You may not realize it, but Claire's work studying the changing extent of the ice caps deeply affected our understanding of climate change, and relatedly, our understanding of how climate change affects life on Earth.
One of the clearest signals for climate change that resonates with people has been this shrinking of the polar ice cap in the summer that we're able to see because of Claire's work.
After we had a record that was about 15-20 years long, we started noticing that the extent of the ice in the Arctic was getting smaller over time.
Sea ice is formed on the surface of the ocean and therefore is made from seawater. The biggest concentration is in the Arctic, and it's also where the biggest loss in sea ice is occurring. Every year, NASA reports on the sea ice minimum and maximum extents. As expected, the data is concerning.
By now, not only has this trend toward lesser ice continued, but it's even accelerated, so that now the decreases are greater than what they had been.
These trends are deeply troubling, but one thing's for sure. Our awareness of shrinking sea ice extent due to climate change was propelled faster and further after Claire Parkinson arrived at NASA.
I mean, she takes her job seriously, and the health and welfare of those instruments in space, yeah, she's on it. You know, it's one of the things you don't worry about because Claire's in the loop on these things. It's going to be fine.
In science, we stand on the shoulders of giants, on the shoulders of those who explored before us. But then, some among us are giants.
For a scientist, it's incredibly exciting to be studying these glaciers and ice sheets right now because they're doing something that hasn't happened in thousands of years. We're watching changes take place that haven't happened since the end of the last ice age. Tuesday was cold, I almost froze my toes. Oh, what's it gonna be next week? Who knows? That's climate. Oh, that's the climate you got. You take a bunch of weather and you average it together and you're doing the climate rock.
At a glacial pace, it means something's happening so slowly you can barely tell it's happening at all. That used to describe the very incremental movement glaciers and ice sheets experienced each year. But now that's changing. We're tagging along with 3 NASA scientists to understand the different lengths they go to not only investigate ice sheets and glaciers, but also communicate their often complicated science to the public. First, let's get oriented. Ice sheets, in pink, pretty much occur in only 2 places, Antarctica and Greenland. Glaciers, in yellow, play a key role draining melt off the ice sheet. Glaciers are also found in the high mountains, but we'll get to those in another episode.
So we know that something's happening in Greenland right now that's unprecedented in the last several thousand years.
That's Dr. Josh Willis, oceanographer at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Josh and his team are tackling one of the major environmental challenges of the 21st century, trying to answer fundamental questions about how melting glaciers impact sea level rise.
With my mission, Oceans Melting Greenland, or OMG for short, we're trying to understand just how much of Greenland's melt is caused by the oceans.
Along with being one of NASA's top scientists working on the cryosphere, Josh is passionate about demystifying climate change in typically unconventional ways.
I think by reaching out to people with a little bit of humor, a little bit of fun, maybe a song, you really have the opportunity to help people understand and come to terms with what we're doing to our planet. Because it's definitely happening and it's definitely a big deal, and we need to start preparing for it.
Down at the opposite pole, Dr. Kelly Brunt is getting ready for a major expedition.
In December and January this coming year, I'll actually be in Antarctica down near the South Pole collecting ground-based GPS data.
This is actually Kelly's second expedition to the South Pole. The first occurred in December and January of last year. Both surveys are critical and will help validate data collected by NASA's airborne campaign, Operation Icebridge, and the recently launched satellite mission ISAT-2.
All 3 of these layers, that ground-based, that airborne, and the satellite, are all tied together. The ground-based helps validate both the satellite and the airborne helps give us more validation data for the satellites, but also a bigger story with respect to the depth of the ice sheet and what's going on underneath the surface.
While some scientists are taking measurements in the field, others are looking for answers in physics and lines of code.
For me, those projections that we are doing, they do have a very personal meaning.
Dr. Sophie Nowicki is an ice sheet modeler. That means she and her team have the important job of forecasting how ice will change in the future, which also predicts changes in sea level rise. It's a job she doesn't take lightly, especially since urban planning and infrastructure use her team's models to make decisions about the future and safety of their communities.
When we make those projections that are 100 years in the future, 100 years can seem so far away, like I don't have to worry about it, it's just too far. But actually they are not. It's really like the future that we are looking at that our children or grandchildren will see to experience.
Whether it's learning to communicate in new ways, traversing a swath of Antarctica in a massive piston bully, or taking responsibility for an impactful climate forecast, our NASA explorers are pushing the limits of discovery every day. But on a very human level, they're people with families and friends who have a stake in finding out why and how the planet is changing as rapidly as it is.
Every place, at least so far, that we have found life, we found water along with it. And so when we try to understand the thresholds for life, where life might exist elsewhere in our solar system and the universe, water is one of those things that we look for.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Taking a look at the marine forecast, starting with the ice edge, you can see that many areas along the west coast are seeing some ice build up, and that even shows up in Cook Inlet here in south central Alaska. Other good note is that ice is closing in the Chukchi Sea. For the marine forecast for Thursday, southeast, inside waters, winds generally from a southeast direction, 15 to 20 with gusts of 35 there in the Stevens Passage area. Outside waters, winds generally from the westerly direction, 20 to 25, seas as high as 14 feet. And for Friday, inside water, winds continue out of the southeast at 10 to 15 with seas as high as 6 feet. And outside waters, winds generally from a westerly direction, up to 20 with seas as high as 16 feet. For south central Thursday, Prince William Sound, winds generally from the east at 15, seas as high as 4 feet. For the Gulf region, winds generally from the westerly direction, 30 to 40 with seas as high as 17 feet. In the northern Gulf there, winds generally from the south at 25, seas as high as 16 feet. And for the Cook Inlet region, winds generally from a variable direction, 20 to 30 with seas as high as 12 feet there in the Kamishak Bay region. For Friday, Prince William Sound, winds generally from the northeast at 20, seas as high as 3 feet. In the Gulf region, winds generally from the northeast at 20 to 35, seas as high as 14 feet near Barren Islands. And then for the Cook Inlet region, winds generally from the west at 10 to 35, seas as high as 11 feet near Kamishak Bay. For Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, Thursday, around Kodiak Island, winds generally from the west at 40, seas as high as 20 feet near Kodiak Island there. And the south side of the peninsula, winds generally from the west at 30, seas as high as 14 feet. And north side of the peninsula, winds generally from the west at 40 to 50. Looks like we might be getting into storm force winds there with seas as high as 17 feet, even 19 feet there as you get north side of Gold Bay. For Friday, around Kodiak Island, winds continue out of the west at 30 to 35, seas as high as 14 feet. And south side of the peninsula, winds continue out of the west at 30, seas as high as 11 feet. North side of the peninsula, winds also from the west at 30, seas as high as 13 feet. For Thursday, Aleutian Chain, winds look like they're going to be out of the west for most of the region at 30, seas as high as 14 feet just north of Unalaska. We might get into some gale force winds there. And for Friday, winds continue out of the westerly direction for the most part at 25 to 35 with seas as high as 14 feet near Kiska. For the west coast on Thursday, winds generally from the west at 30 to 40 with seas as high as 17 feet there near Kuskokwim Bay. In Norton Sound, winds generally from a northeasterly direction at 15, seas as high as 3 feet. For Friday, winds generally from a variable direction at 25 to 35 with seas as high as 12 feet just south of Savunga. For the Arctic coast, just off the Arctic coast there, winds generally from the northeast at 20, seas as high as 5 feet in the ice-free area up through the northwest coast. Winds generally from the northeast at 25 to 35, seas as high as 12 feet, and through the Bering Strait, winds generally from a variable direction 30 to 35, seas as high as 13 feet. For Friday, just off the Arctic coast there, winds generally from the west at 15 to 20, seas as high as 3 feet in the ice-free areas, and northwest coast, winds generally from a northerly direction 20 to 25, seas as high as 8 feet, and down through the Bering Strait, winds from the north at 35, seas as high as 12 feet. For tonight's weather, low pressure system moving into the Cook Inlet region, 981 millibar low with a trough out ahead of that system. Snow showers along the North Gulf Coast and into the Panhandle. Another low in and around Norton Sound, 984 millibars there. Southwest region will see some scattered snow showers, and as you get across the Gulf region, some rain showers through the region.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.